might happen. Please take care. Yeah. So, what exactly is compiler and what exactly is interpreter? Compiler, when it comes, so imagine that you have written 10 lines of source code in terms of a C language, and you want to understand, you want to get output of it. So, when you give these 10 lines of code, what compiler does is it will take all those 10 lines of code and then translates into machine code. It means it compiles the source code that you gave. When I say machine code, in a way that machine understands, of course, in terms of binary language, and that transition from your source code in terms of C language to, in a way, that binary conversion happens with the assembly level language.
Mm.
It's a very core interaction with the hardware, which we would
It
not
will take all those
take
10
care,
lines of
which we would
code
not
and
taking
then
that headache.
translates
So you have
into
to just
machine code.
understand that compiler
Machine
is
code,
one way of translator,
which
which means
takes a
it
source code,
compiles the source
converts
code
it to
that you
machine
gave
code,
and
and
gives
gives
you
you
machine
objective
code in a way
file.
that machine
And then,
understands.
if you
Of course,
execute
in
that
terms of
object file,
binary
it will give you
language,
an output.
and that
So,
transition from your
these
source code
kind
in
of,
terms of
can
C
you guys
language
give me
to, in a
what
way,
kind of
that binary conversion
languages
happens
or
with the
compiled
assembly level language.
languages, if
It's a very
possible? I
core
would love to
interaction with the
hear
hardware,
some
which
outputs
we would
or
not
will take all those
take
10
care,
lines
chat
which
box
will
would
not
and
take
then
that headace.
translates
So, you have
into
to just
machine code.
understand
Okay,
that.
so
You
machine
can
code.
consider C or C++. You might have already heard that they were called as compiled languages, right? And when it comes to interpreter will also have 10 lines of code, but this time, instead of compiling all the 10 lines of code in your source code at a time, it will just take one line of that source code and compiles it, executes it, and gives you output. So, what is the difference between a compiler and interpreter in this way? What happens in compiler is it will take all the lines of code at a time, compiles it, converts to object code, and gives you an output. But when it comes to interpreter, it all of this process happens in one line at a time. See, the difference you can see with this block diagram is you give a source code when it comes to interpreter, and the interpreter actually does execution of compiler and machine code for one line at a time, and then it gives you an output. So all of this execution happens each and every line. In that way, you can easily remember the differences between the compiler and interpreter. Yes, yeah, Python and JavaScript or Java are the examples of interpreted language. When somebody says it's an interpreted language, means this is what exactly it means. And obviously, you can consider this factor as one of the reasons why a language is called as a high level language, right? So obviously there are multiple factors when you call a specific programming language as a low level or a high level, but compiler versus interpreter is one of the factors. It will contribute to tell that a specific language is a high level language. So what are, in a way, what are other factors, sir, that you can say that a language can be a high level or low level? So you can consider memory management. If you are already aware of a C language or you have had hands-on on any other programming languages, you'd understand that even we have those concepts in the Python. The memory management is when you give a input in the source code, you need some memory addresses to store the variables or the values that you give as an input. In order to make that process happen, when you give some input, it needs some memory address. And in a way, we are using variables, which are nothing but a name that we give to store a specific value. So, who is taking care of managing this memory? For example, you have a pen drive and you have let's say 2 GB of space in it. And do you think all that 2 GB is allocated for you for your personal usage? No, right? Even if you say if you had booted your laptop or when you have bought a new laptop, if you ask to change your OS, it will ask you how many drives should you split, how much amount of memory should you allocate for a specific drive, right? So in that way, a little bit of memory will definitely be allocated for for processing of that specific device. In this way, when it comes to a source code, a simple program language, a program which has an inputs given by a user, when you give an input, how does machine understand or the program understand that how much amount of memory should it allocate for that specific program? Should it allocate all the memory resources it has, or should it organize it properly, just like your financial management?
Would you spend on everything that you have on one specific task, or would you properly organize it, plan it, and then allocate whatever it is necessary in terms of resources, right? In a similar way, we do have data types concept and variables concept, where we organize our inputs in few data types. It means you are in need of splitting the way that you give the input. Is it a number? Is it a string? Is it an English context, or is it something else? So if you properly organize the input in a way that you are giving, it is nothing but a data type. So when you give some data type, machine understands, okay, this person is giving me so and so data type, so I have to allocate this much amount of memory, which is enough. So that is exactly what is dynamic memory management. If you are taking care of that memory management, telling that I am using so and so data type, please allocate this much of amount of memory. That is exactly what happens in low level language. For example, you write char and then so on so in C language, or int or float or double. These are the few data types that you have, right? So when you specify what is the necessity or no reason behind you specifying that you are using that specific data type, that is like nothing but you are letting machine know that I'm going to use this specific data type. Please allocate this much amount of memory, right? So, if the programming interpreter itself, the translator itself is taking care of that headache, that's nothing but this high level language. So, nowhere in our Python programming or JavaScript, when it comes to web development or Java or not Java or in any other few high level languages, sometimes we don't need to specifically tell, please allocate this much amount of memory for this data type. That is automatically taken care. It means automatic memory management is happening, which is exactly where you can call it as another factor for telling it as a high level language. So that is one with compiler versus interpreter. And coming to the application, so we are going to learn this Python programming definitely, and specifically related to the libraries called Matplotlib and NumPy, Pandas, which are most useful in data science background, in a data engineering or data analysis levels, where you play with machine learning models. But here you can see that now that you understood what is this programming, and how this history of programming looks like, and how do we distinguish a low level language or high level language. Now that you got the overview of how the programming languages status is happening in the market, why specifically Python? If you choose Python programming as your option, it's not that this is better, this is big, this is small, or this is great and this is not. It's all dependent and based on the situation that you are in. If you would like to do so and so application listed in this screen, definitely you would like to choose the best one and the fastest one. Let me put it in this way: all the people in the market, in the industry, or who is already experienced in a specific domain, let's say beyond 20-year or 30-year-old experience, and here comes some new language, and then say, maybe I would like to do something with this programming language. Nobody will show interest in learning a programming language which will ask you to learn from very scratch level, right? And I'm sure that it will not be, you will not have that much of time sometimes to learn it from very scratch level, or you will be lacking time, or you will be out of your processing powers. This is exactly where the Python programming comes as a savior. You don't need to write scripts or write very low level language or like C or C++, where you need to worry about very core programming concepts. Rather, you just let us know what is the domain that you want to work with. We will provide you, this is the libraries, these are the frameworks you can use. If you can just adopt those frameworks or libraries in by with this Python basics and intermediate skills, it is very easy for you to switch and then work on your existing domain, rather than you learning a programming language from very scratch. That is exactly where Python is standing on top of any other languages, giving you multiple options and vast open source community with all these applications. So we can see this right side, these are just applications of data science on in specifically with AI ML domain, which I personally work with. And these are few general applications that you can do. That's me, Python will impress you in almost all the domains that you want to work with. All right. So yeah. So now, as we are getting started with specifically Python programming, what are the ways that we can execute this Python programming, right? So very first option you can see that's it's an IDLE, which is official python.org IDLE. Again, what is this IDE? What is this integrated development environment? It's nothing but an environment where it will allow you to write Python program and then execute it and then get some output, right? So in these are the ways that you can write your code and then execute it and get the outputs. So if you want to show me, if you want me to show how do we install a specific IDLE, which is from Python official organization, here is where you can do it. In my case, I would not ask you to do, write all the concepts that I'm going to teach you for the next 3 days in IDLE. Rather, I would be choosing Google Colab as my option. The reason being, it is an online interpreter, which is nothing but a online Jupyter hosted in Google. Okay, so this is best for me and for you guys. It's because whenever I'm doing these sessions, whenever I'm coding here, I can immediately share you the link of that URL of that particular file to you guys in the chat box, and you can immediately access it and can see dynamically whatever I'm typing it once you refresh it. So it makes my teaching easier for you, and it will also be easier for you to run multiple scripts there itself and see the outputs. Nevertheless, I'm not going to stop you to execute any other language, any other IDLE that you wish. If you're already good with any other ID, still fine, right? So now if you want to understand how do we execute a simple Python program, IDLE is one that you have to do. For that, you just go to python.org. It is an official Python organization URL. Once you go here, you can see a little bit stuff about the recent releases and what are the frameworks that they've been using in depth of it. But here you can go to downloads tab. If you just hover on it, you will get an option according to your OS. It will immediately suggest you that specific download link here. So just go to python.org and click on this specific link. It will immediately start downloading the executable file or the software file immediately into your laptop. If there are any permission that you need to give, you can give it customizedly. So once this is downloaded, all that you have to do is just click on it, just tap on it, and it will show up pop up like this. I think you are not able to see that because I'm sharing the window. Let me share my entire screen. I hope you can see this pop up. So once you click on it, you can click on please enable this checkbox, which is add python.exe to path. And in this way, it will not ask you to almost attach where did you install your actual Python software and where did you write a Python script. So you don't need to map always this is a file, this is a software. So please don't forget to enable it and then click on install now. If there is any password or administrative access it requests, please give that permissions. It will start installing like this. Please wait till it finishes as per your internet. This will not take more than 2 minutes. As I'm just repeating it, yeah, setup was successful. I'm just repeating it again, guys. I am not going to use this specific official IDLE for our class purposes. I'm using Google Colab, and I'll be sharing you the link. You can immediately see the code that I'm going to write. It will reduce, if I'm going fast or if I'm going slow, you can just match up. This is just to show you that this is also possible. All right, so now that I'm done with this, I'll go to my search and search for IDLE. When I search for IDLE, it will immediately show up this. You can just click on open, and here it is. It will show you a source code interpreter, which is an IDE integrated development environment, where you can write piece of code and see how it works. All right. So in my case, let me write a simple Python program or a simple arithmetic calculation. Let's say 2 plus 3 will give me an output called 5. So I would highly appreciate if you can follow me simultaneously and do this process and see in your own cases.
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, your voice is a bit low, sir.
Bit low.
Ah,
Okay.
Is this better, guys?
good, sir. Yes, good.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so then if I take up a simple print statement, so we will be discussing what are all these things, but to show you how do we can execute this Python programming, I'll just write a simple string called hi. So the syntax to do that is just print. It's not printf or console.log like other languages. This is just print. And then write a simple string. You can write anything you wish in double inverted commas and just see how does the output look like. So this is exactly what how it is going to be. Okay, this is great, but there are few situations or my programs needs multiple lines executions, right? So I need to give multiple lines and multiple logics where I have to deal my problem statements. In that way, this is not the way we can do it, right? This might not be helpful because this is just one liner. And if you want to do that, you can go for new file here. It will open up a simple notepad for you, simple notepad kind of format, and all that you can do is in this case you can write the same thing, print hi. This is one line in my program, and also another one, let's say hello. And I'm done with writing multiple lines. Let me copy paste this to just to show you that multiple lines exist. So now how do I execute this particular Python programming file? After I'm done with my scripting, my program, I will save this first. How do I save it? Definitely it has to be .py extension, right? As it's a Python programming, .py is extension, but when you click save, it will immediately show up. It will detect the format that you're doing it, and it is showing you that it's a Python file format, right? So now let me name something called one, which will automatically take that one.py extension. Okay, so now you save this. I saved somewhere in a path, and I want to see the output for this specific program, right? And for that, I will just click on run module. You will immediately see the output happening in your shell, ideally shell, right? So I'm just repeating my steps, guys. You can write code here in this ideally shell, but you cannot. I mean, it's very difficult for us to write multiple lines here because once we press enter, it will give you the output. Rather than this, I would go to file and take a new file and then print my lines, whatever the program that I want to write. It can have multiple lines. Once I'm done with it, I will just save the file just by Control S and then give a name for it. You don't need to give any extensions. It will take automatically of that. And then after saving it, go for run and then click on the very first one, run module, or you can use F5 as a shortcut to do that. So in that way, you will execute your very first program. In this case, this is the output in my case. All right. So yeah, this is how exactly a simple offline Python IDLE shell programming execution happens. Great. So now the limitation with this kind of teaching for me is I will be teaching multiple concepts in today, right? So there are a lot of concepts that I have to cover. But if I keep on doing that in this offline shell, and then whenever I want to share you, or you might be lagging behind sometimes, how do I communicate my programs to you? So this becomes difficult for me. I have to save this file and then put it in Google Drive, and then to share has to be done, and you cannot see this happening in a very quick way. This is exactly why I am avoiding to do these things in Ideally. But no concept change, no syntax change. We are going to learn Python same, everything remains same. It's just that we are executing in something called Google Colab. So once you search for Google Colab, which is Google Collaboratory, which is a Google tool which will allow you to execute Python, very famous tool for data science, data scientists and data engineers in the real time. So once you search for Google Colab, click on your first link, which is Google Colab. If you already had few Python files, it will immediately show up if it's there uploaded in your drive. If not, don't worry about it. So just click on cancel here if it pops up for you. So this is exactly how the Google Colab interface look like. Okay, so now I would like to create a new notebook. Again, a notebook is nothing but a file which is an interactive program, which is interactive notebook, which will allow you to run multiple Python scripts, multiple Python programs at a time. Okay, how? Let's click on new notebook after going to Google Colab. If somebody is struggling to go to Google Colab, this is a URL. I'll be sharing this in the chat. Just visit this link and then go to a new notebook from the file, and you'll create this. By default, it will be having something called IPYNB, which stands for Interactive Python Notebook. So we can name it as per our wish. In my case, I'll just say FBPA, FBB Python 1, Python 0. So this is a file name that I just created. I hope this is completely visible for you, and a little bit interaction about understanding of this particular tool is you have regular options: file, edit, view, insert, runtime, and you also have an option to share. So in my case, I have to share this notebook to you guys because you can see whatever I'm doing it right away there. But remember, you have to refresh your page whenever I make a change in my program notebook. Okay, so if I'm done with one specific concept or one specific program, please remember to refresh it. It will immediately update in your local storage. Okay, in my case, I would keep it open for everybody, and I will copy this link. After copying it, I'm pasting it to you guys. So this is exactly where you guys can access my content for day one. Is my voice breaking? Is it for everybody or only for one? Can you please confirm once?
Your voice is clear, sir.
Great, thanks. Okay, so maybe only for Sagar, I guess. Great, thank you guys. All right, so yeah, now that we came to here, a few things about this particular thing is when you just put your cursor or hover at the middle of this cell, you will get two options, which is code and then text. So usually, basically, code is to give you guys another shell, just like another platform for you to write Python program. And text is to put some English content out of it. Let's say in my case, I am speaking about introduction to Python. So I wrote this text, and I can also play with my font sizes here if I wish, and italic, bold, a regular text option. So I'm done with that. Now I'm using code cell to print or execute some Python program. All right. So yeah, before I do that, basically you don't need to do this manually, but you see there is an option called connect here. Please click on it before you execute your first one. Or if you even forget this, when you do the very first execution, it will automatically connect. So now what is this concept of connecting and doing all of this? As I said, we had discussed multiple IDs are possible for you to execute a Python program. And what is the advantage of using this is whatever you executed with your offline Python downloaded IDLE, You are doing it only in offline, in your local storage, in your system. The same process, all of that, if I do it on cloud, which is like on a server, or which is available for everybody for an online, I can deploy it. I mean, instead of me putting it to Google Drive or sharing it to anybody else, Google Colab is helping me to do all those features without even taking that risk of multiple times I'm me sharing you that content, right? So if you can consider, imagine that an offline Python ideally hosted somewhere online and you are using it. In that way, you have your system resources. There is a memory for your system, there is a processor, and you are writing a Python program in your offline and you are executing it. Similarly, this Google Colab also has its own RAM and its own disk, just like an online computer staying out there, and you are using those resources within just an URL. So Google is providing you these resources for free, just like it is giving you 15 GB for one Gmail account. So you can use this resources as much as you can. In real time, obviously, when there is a bigger project, you will not be happy with the amount of resources that Google gives you. In those situations, you need to request Google Colab for the addition of resources, or you can just use Jupyter Notebook, which is an offline, and put your physical system resources connected to it. So it's either of the way, it's fine. As I said, if you want to execute a specific program, doesn't matter whichever programming language it is, you need hardware resources for it, right? Like processor or RAM or ROM, right? In this case, Google is taking care of for you. All right, so that's with the Google Colab, and let's go get started with our very first one. I think everybody learned whenever we say about a new programming language, or it's a very first day, everybody start with "Hello World," right? So maybe let just for a new thing, maybe let me give something called print, which is my output function. Whatever you write in this specific print function, based on the data type you chose, it will you can imagine that whatever you give as an input in this specific brackets, it will show you as an output. In my case, let us just do 2 plus 3, and I'm done with my program. Imagine this entire cell is one program, and you will immediately see these suggestions coming up. So advantages of using Google Colab again is you will get these auto filling suggestions, where you can let it will make maybe you can use this. These are the syntaxes available. But forget this, you don't need to break your heads for all of these things. Press escape on it and just come out of it. Now I want to execute this particular program and see the output, right? So one way is you can just go and click on this play button. It will run the cell and it will give you the output. Or if you want to do it in a shortcut way within your keyboard, just do Control plus Enter. I am typing that here. Do Control plus Enter. Execute this particular program cell. So when you do this, remember, it is not going to execute all the cells in this complete notebook. It will only run this specific cell. All right, it means I'm just executing one specific program in this. Done. So what else can we do with this print function, and what can we do in this print function? Right now, I would also like to do some English text in it. Let's say hello world is one, but let's say hello Python. So what is the syntax, sir? I'm using single inverted comma, or you can also use double inverted commas to write a simple English text in it. We will understand more of what is this data type soon. But for an example, you type this in inverted commas mandatorily and run this. You will see multiple lines, multiple programs, multiple lines consists of multiple outputs, and it will give you output in a line by line fashion. All right. So now I understood, and we understood how to execute a particular program in Colab. Let's go ahead. Okay. Now, what is this symbol? What is this symbol? I just gave you guys an instruction that you have to use so and so thing, right? Which is Control plus Enter. And I don't want my program to actually consider this specific line for the execution, right? What I mean to say is you only need to execute these two specific lines, but I don't want this line to be executed. I just used it for my understanding, just to interact with the user, right? This is exactly where the comments come, right? So this is nothing but a comment. What is it? It's a comment. So usually in Python programming, we use hash to make a line as a comment, right? And how do we make multiple lines as comments? Again, what is a comment? Comments are used to give specific instructions while the execution of program, and it is basically used for documentation of your program. What are you doing in that specific file? All right. I think meanwhile, by the time passes, you will understand more of when to do comments, when to put comments. So we'll not waste time on top of that. All right. So I want to say hi and hello also for you guys, and Python also. Here are three different lines here. This enter space means nothing, guys. You can give as many enters you want. And I want to comment all these three lines at a time. One way of doing it is just put hash on each line. No need of space also. As soon as you give hash, as I said, Python is nothing but using an interpreter, right? This shell uses interpreter, which is nothing but converting your code in a way that machine understand, right? So when you give an English content like this, if you want this line to be just an instruction but not a Python program, either you put one hash before that, or you can consider doing multiple lines at a time like this. Select all the lines and then just do control plus slash, which is a forward slash. I'm writing that here. So this is a command you can use, control plus slash, which is a forward slash because it's leaning forward, and select the lines that you want to comment and do control slash. It will comment and also it will uncomment. So this is exactly how you can comment stuff in Python programming, and I'll comment it right there. All right, so that is how a simple program of Python executes, and this is how you comment in Python. Now, what about these spacings and few stuff which are dedicated to C programming level? Few people will have this, phobia of whenever they are learning a new programming language, whenever you miss a space or a character, it is very horrible. That is exactly where a lot of people are actually, backing up, saying that programming is not for you. But I mean, if you actually understand why it is happening in that way, trust me, you will not have that phobia of any programming languages. So in this Python programming, let's say I am writing a simple print. Let's say again, hello world. Eventually came back to this line itself. All right, so I will run this. It runs and gives me the output. And in this case, what if I write my next line from here? Few people will have, what if I miss a white space? What if I'm not in alignment with this? In Python programming, this unnecessary space that you gave, which is not in aligned or which is not in sync with this particular sequence, is nothing but indentation. So even a white space matters in this case, which is nothing but indentation. The terminology that you should use is indentation. So let's try to understand this much more. Now if I run this, which is control plus enter, it is immediately showing me an error saying that unexpected indent, which is indentation error. There are multiple errors that we can do. We will be doing it in the future in the Python programming, right? So it will let you know, this collab will let you know this is an indentation error and this is a mistake in this particular character. So the mistake here is I am using unnecessary spaces here. White space is nothing but simple space, right? So what if I avoid this and run it? It will smoothly give you an output, right? And what if I do this? So we will still get an indentation error, right? So my very first statement, I'm calling it as a statement, one specific line. This statement is starting from here and the immediate one is starting from, it means there is a meaning for this space in other concepts of Python. So please don't use it as ever you wish, right? So you have to be very conscious about your indentation in Python programming in this way, which is not in other languages because there are they are having brackets, and there are the way that JavaScript functions or any other language functions are a little bit different when it comes to Python programming. So I think we need a little more maturity of other concepts to understand why it is happening. So let's hold our hands and wait for the other concepts and see why it is happening. So all right. So that space means something for Python, which is nothing in this case. And it means it is a misusage of white space in this particular concept. That's why it's error. All right. So moving on, we will start with our very first concept. We are done with indentation comments, right? So how do we declare a variable in Python? So firstly, we will understand what is a variable. The name, simple English itself says that it is variable, right? It means it can vary. What does it actually vary? The value that you are going to give. Why should you give a value? Because you need so and so operation to happen with the inputs that you give, and the way that you give, it might be a number, and it might be a simple English, or it might be something else numerical. So how do we make segregation of the type of value that you give is a data type concept, but doesn't matter, whatever data type, whatever value you want to give, that you give needs to be stored somewhere. And if I give a value, imagine, can I remember the memory addresses or where actually it is storing? No, and it's a hectic work for me to even remember that. That is exactly where this variables concept come. You can just give some English characters as a name for a specific value. A value can be of any data type, and then that variable will be the variable title, or the name that you give can be used to call that specific value anywhere and n number of times. It means, for an example, in my case, I would like to give value number 2 inside A. So we all know that if in this case it is just LHS or HS, whatever value in this case is 2 wants to be stored inside A. So A is my variable here, and I'm just storing value 2 inside A. This everybody knows, I guess. And what if I say something like this? So what happens in this case? A already had 2, and I'm giving something else in this case. As I said, this is an interpreted language. First line took 2, great, but immediately in the next line you give something else. So what happens when I want to see what does a variable A consist of? Is it 2 or is it 2.0023? How do we see output of a variable? Again, that is exactly where we are going to use our first statement, print. So we give print A, which means I'm asking my interpreter to give me the value that I stored under the name called A, right? Again, coming back to my very first question, why do we need variables? Do you think I can remember this number all the times whenever I want to use this in my program? Or should I take that headache of typing this number again and again and again all the time? No. So nobody would love to remember this memory address or this number to be typed again and again. That is exactly where the A is coming hand over, right? If you just give one single letter, it will only remember all of this for you. This is exactly why we needed variables, right? So this is the shortcut way of accessing values immediately. All right. Now that we are done with variable definitions, there are two words that we should know, guys: define and declare. These are two things that we need to have idea about. So before I discuss what is define, what is declare, let me now run this line and see how does it give us. There you go. You got 2.00233. What is the understanding of this? Initially, I gave this, and then immediately I redefined it. So me giving a value to a variable is nothing but define. I am defining variable A with the value 2. And I am also redefining my value of A with so and so value. It means in the very first line I had 2. In the second line immediately I changed my value. So whatever is the latest will be considered. Okay. And why is it happening so? As we discussed to our very first thing, compiler versus interpreter. So interpreter will execute a line by line execution, which will convert each and every line to compile, to get compiled, convert to object code, and then give the value, right? So in the same way, once you define this and use it, after executing this line, it will go to this line and it will store the latest one of it and then give you the output. This is exactly why it takes the latest one, because it's an interpreted language. All right, so now let's move ahead. How do I give some English letters as an input? Let's say I want to call my name itself, and I want to use a variable called b equals to, can I just write like this? What happens when I just write like this? Now there is a conflict in the interpreter understanding that when you gave me a word called Akhil and also a b, how do I know that you are giving me input as Akhil but not as a variable? What I mean to say is, what if Akhil is a word that I am already using for some other purpose in my Python programming? What if there is a purpose for this specific word? There might be a conflict, right? It means, what if I had declared a value called 2 for Akhil itself? Now I did this, Akhil is having 2, value 2, and if I run this, it will now take value of Akhil as an input to the B. So let us confirm it. I ran B and just check B. Excuse me. Right. So what is actually happening here? I saved a value 2 in Akhil, and the same value is getting stored under B also, because I'm giving Akhil as an input to B and then just explaining B. Right. So in order to avoid these kind of conflicts, this Akhil is a user defined variable. It means me being a user can give any name that I wish, right? If I give a value like this, what if it conflicts with the existing variables to the Akhil that you see? In my case, I am expecting Akhil only to print, but it took Akhil as a value, right? So in this case, I will just put double quotes or single quote, which is nothing but a string. All right, so now I put my Akhil word in a string, which will convert this value to string. We will understand more about string, but when I run this, will it take variable value of Akhil or will it just print as it is? So what is the observation? It prints as it is, right? So this is the difference between using using a string concept in the RHS like this to without using string concept. So now this literally means Akhil itself. I am expecting alphabets, English alphabets AKHIL, but not the variable value of Akhil. If you are expecting Akhil as a value, you have to avoid this giving strings. All right. So let's move on to other examples. In my case, let's say what are the ways that I can add two different variables. So what might be the value in this case? Do I already know what is the value of A? Do I already know what is the value of B? In this case, if let's scroll up and see, the understanding that you need to have is here. You can use any number of cells here, guys. It will remember your previous cells variable values. All of this notebook will have one storage things. Okay, you don't need to worry. I wrote A is equals to 2 in this cell, and can I expect A value in this cell? Yes, it's possible in this Google Colab notebook. It once you run this, immediately it will store the value of 2 in A, and once you run in another cell here, it will take the value of previous cell. Okay, that's possible in Google Colab Index. That is one type of advantage here. Okay, so now according to my previous cells, what should be the value of this? A is consisting of the latest one was here, and B is consisting of a string. Okay, let us see if it's possible to add a string which is an English alphabet to a number and see how does it do. See here, immediately it showed me an error. Hey buddy, you are trying to add a number to an English string called Akhil. It's not possible. That is exactly what it is telling me in this case, right? So can I add multiple values instead of B? What if I call Akhil? In this case, am I calling English Akhil or am I calling the value of Akhil? Do I have strings here? No, I don't have quotes. So it will be considered as value of Akhil. And if I run this, immediately it is this, right? So we don't need to worry about our spacings also. Something like this happens, just click on this. So So this will not matter even if you give any many spaces, guys. This space means nothing in this case. This is not indentation. Okay, indentation is when you give spaces at the start of the execution. Again, in this case, it will not show you an error. Let's see. Let's run this. It happened because the very first statement itself is this, and you are setting the trademark that I will write all my rest of the lines from this position itself. So let us try to understand it. Let me copy paste this again and paste it. So let's run this again. Don't worry if it's showing this red line right away. You can ignore that. That's just a warning. That doesn't mean it's wrong. Execute it and see, guys. Okay. Now when I run this, it is showing me output. Hey Akhil, why are you saying this is possible? You told that if you give an extra space, it's an indentation error. Trust me, now it is problem. It is a wrong thing if you put something like this here. So what is it happening here? You already set a standard of writing your language in one specific character, and you're immediately changing that representation. This is nothing but indentation error. If you are agreeing that every line that you do starts from here, this is totally fine for this. But if you do this and run it, it will show you an error. Okay, you stick to one particular sequence of starting your first lines. Okay, so that is with the indentation thing. If you want to see this content in your browser, please access my link and then refresh it. You'll get this content. All right. Again, there are a few rules before you declare a variable. I am going to show you those rules here. Give me a second. With that, we can understand wrap-up variables concept. There are few rules that you need to follow before you give a variable value. So I am copy pasting those rules. I want you guys to clearly see them and understand that you are following these rules here. Please take a minute to read all of these things so that we can apply on the next program. Great question. Thanks for asking it. Hence, there is no necessity of using semicolons in Python programming, guys. Don't worry about semicolon here. Thanks for asking, guys. Unlike C or JavaScript, you don't need to worry about semicolon in Python programming. Nevertheless, as you asked, let's say I do print hi. Right now, it will obviously show you an output. As per your doubt, if I do this semicolon and run it, still it will give you output because Python still understands your burden of learning other languages and still adopting this. This will not throw you an error. You can use it, but what I suggest you is to avoid it because it's not necessary at all. Still, if you have a habit, no problem at all. All right. As you saw these rules, when I say a variable, it's nothing but like this. So what are the rules before you give a variable name like this? It means valid variables means you have to give, you can give lowercase, you can give uppercase, you can use numbers, you can also use underscores. People who are already good with VLSI tools and the language, you can see why do we need underscore, right? So in my case, let's say ABC is fine to store a value and it's happening. So capital ABC is also fine. This is also valid variable. And what if I use an underscore? Let's say hello Python. So can we give a variable like this with a white space gap? No, right? As white space means something to the interpreter, you cannot give a variable which has white spaces in it. Rather, if you want to name a variable which has two words in it, instead of white space, please give underscore. It will take that and then give a value. It will still work. And then you can also start with directly underscore itself and then just give a value, just an underscore. Still it will work. If you want to see the output values of it, just use your print function and give the variable that you gave there. It will show you the output of that particular variable. Okay, so now what is the problem with numbers is if somebody would like to access this, let me put this in chat. So I pasted rules of valid and invalid variables in the chat. You can access there. I can use a variable like this, ABC123, and then put a value in it. Simultaneously, you can never start a variable with a number like this. It will immediately throw you an error saying syntax error. See again, syntax is nothing but a format or a way of representation that we agreed upon, right? So syntax error means this is not the format you can execute Python program. It means there is something wrong with this, right? So 123 ABV is like you cannot start a variable with a number. So please avoid this number as there might be conflicts with the memory addresses sometimes. So please avoid giving a number at the starting of the variables. That's fine. And what is the other alternative invalid variables? You cannot use symbols in it. It means you cannot use ABC and then do this and then give. If you want to avoid these kind of auto suggestions, please press on escape. It will just avoid that. If you give a value like this is an error because you are using a symbol in it. Okay, so except your underscore, and there is also an exception to dollar, where if you do something like this and run this, let me comment this, this will become an invalid thing, but dollar will have an exception when we go to strings concept, where you can use this as a string literals. Okay, so please give a special attention to dollar later on. Right now it's an invalid thing, but you have only white space as a symbol allowed, not other symbols. So just remember that. I commented it. And what are the other invalid things? Never start with the number done. Never use keywords. So now what is a keyword? So let me just show you what are the existing keywords. That are there here. All can directly go keywords in Python. So I would definitely suggest you to go through W3 Schools guide, which is an open source guide. Very good content out there under W3 Schools Python. Yeah. So let us see these lists. So what are these words here? These are the words under keyword column that are already having some task on their back. It means when you use this word in Python program, it already has a task to do on top of it. You cannot use these words again for your own personal variable usage. If you do, there will be conflicts with respect to this task that is already given to it, and then yes. Srikanth says type error a is equals to the print a and model type in the object is not callable. Do you have any indentation? So where is it in my case? Which one is it? I'll just you are getting an error. Okay, let's see. So a is equal to, I'm just going to do the same as yours. 2.20023 is a variable. I think you have an indentation things in this case, but let's see. Print a. So it should work in this. Can you check a new cell and check it again? Or I would love to check your collab directly. If you can share the link of your collab in the chat, I can check it. Okay, so it will not be the case. You should not get an error. All right. As I said, Python keywords are the words which you cannot use for variables. So please avoid using variables. All right. So that is with the variables. Now let's move on to the next concept of operators that are possible. Give me just a minute. I think Srikanth has an issue. Let me just right away check him. I think you need to give me access, but yeah. Please give me access, Srikanth sir. Maybe just open share access and give it to everybody. That's it. Like, what are the operators that are possible in Python programming? So if you can see this list, yeah. So these are the list of available operators in the Python programming. As you can see, arithmetic operators are your arithmetic calculations, and assignment operators, comparison operators, bitwise operators. We'll immediately see an example for each one of this right away. Okay, you gave me an access, so give me a second. I'll just check yours. It worked, right? Srikanth, check it again. Maybe you had cache issues. So it works, Srikanth. All right, so let me take an example for arithmetic operator. For everything, I'll be using print. Okay, so in my case, so what is the operator that I'm using right now, guys? It's a simple addition, right? What if I do, I'll comment this, I'll take a new line, I'll do 1 minus 2. Of course, it's a subtraction thing, right? 1 minus 2 is 1. And what about this? Operator stands for multiplication, correct? So 1 into 2 is 2, and this stands for division. So 4 by 2, 2.0, which is being just accurate in terms of a float. So 4 by 2 is 2, correct? What about the new thing that you might see right now is something like this. So let us see what does this mean. Here, if you see, this operator stands for floor division. So this is obviously an addition. Everybody knew this. This is obviously a subtraction. Everybody knew this. And this is multiplication, and this is division, and this is going to be a floor division. It means, as in our regular division things, everybody knows that this is going to be divisor if you have solved your divisions like this. And here is where you get quotient, right? And then after solving your entire process, you get a remainder. So this is the terminology of your regular division, if I'm not wrong. So yes, Dhanalakshmi, you have any problem? All right, so what happens when I do floor division is 8 by 2. When you use this normal division, we all know that 8 by 2 is having a quotient of 4, right? So what is the difference between this to this? Let's see this. Same question. I have two print functions. Let's run this. So right now, you don't see any difference of 4 to 4, 4.0 to 4 right now, right? So what if I change something to 3? It gave us 4 because 8 was completely divided by 2, right? So now when I do this, there is a difference in the output, right? So the difference is when you do 8 by 3, it was a regular division and it does consist of a decimal value, right? And that is the accurate value of 8 by 3. But when you give a floor division, it is rounding off the value of your output of 8 by 3 to the previous integer. Okay, there are in other programming language, we do have seal division and floor division. It's just like floor is on the lower bound, seal is on the upper bound. Okay, so you can round off your values with the use of floor divisions. All right, so next is we also have exponentiation operator. If you want to do something power something, so let's say 2 cube, this is the operator you can use, exponentiation. So 2 cube is obviously 8, right? If you want the square of it, you can just write 2 square, 2 exponent 2. It means this is the base and this is going to be your power exponent value. That is how you can do exponentiation operator. Okay, so what else do we have? Something called modulus. Great. What if I execute the same command 8 by 2? Instead of division by, I'll make it percentile and run this. What does percentile give you is the remainder. The note, the summary of this entire arithmetic operator is division gives you exact decimal value of that particular division. Floor division gives you rounding up value of your previous integer. Modulus gives you remainder value of those two things. Right now, my 8 is completely divided by 2. That is exactly why I'm getting remainder 2, right? 0. If I make it by 3, you can calculate 8 by 3. The quotient is going to be something around 2, and then remainder is also going to be 2 because 8 minus 6, 2. So modulus operator will give you remainder. Division will give you the quotient values. After dividing this, floor division will give you rounding up of the value to the previous integer. So that is the difference among the arithmetic operators. Okay, so the next operator is assignment operator. This is going to be fantastic, which is my favorite operator. Let's see. Right now I gave I is equals to 2, and I would like to add the previous a to something called 3, and I would like to print a. So what is happening in this case is whatever I had earlier on with a, it will be replaced it here and it will be executing as a is equals to 2 plus 3. A is equals to 2 in this line. The 2 will be substituted here, 2 plus 3 is 5, and then print 5. Rather than this, I can also do something like this instead of doing this. A plus equal to 3. This is a shortcut way of writing this specific equation. This is nothing but assignment operator plus. What happens in this case is you writing this is same as you writing this. The same thing will happen. Let us cross check. Got it? So now few people might have a doubt. So you already executed it once. You already had 5. And now when you rerun it, it is still showing 5. Why did it not take previous 5? It is not going to take previous 5 because I am rerunning this execution by redefining the value here. So doesn't matter if you had a as 100. When you execute this specific line, it will reset that value to 2. If few people had that doubt. Okay, so this is exactly how assignment plus works. Nothing changed with the symbol. The same concept with respect to minus also. You do this with minus, it means it is a extension to, it's a shortcut way of you doing a equal to a minus 3. That is with subtraction, and the same is with the multiplication. You doing this is same as you doing a multiplied by, and then you will get output of 2 into 3, whatever is 6. All right, so the same thing will work on the simultaneous thing. So just a homework or just a practice exercise for you guys. If you can do this very well, what I want you to do is, now it comes a scenario where, can we give multiple variables declaration at a time? Yes, I can do something like this and see 2 comma 3, and then I will print A separately, and then I will see B separately. Let us see. See, in Python, you can define variables multiple ways like this. Okay, so you can also declare n number of variables at a time, but it needs to have a value for it also. So it's like a respectively. Okay, and run this. If I run for CDE also, then also it comes. So I can just do C, D, and this will work. All right, so this is how you can do multiple variable declaration. So one practice exercise for you guys is, what if there is a situation like this? So what are going to be my final A, B, C values in this case? I will just wait for 30 seconds, see if somebody can answer it fast, or else I will move on to the next ones. And I think we are almost reaching to our day call off. So yeah, let's see. Great. I do see 3 outputs there, 5, 1, 1, 2. Okay. So why is it so? What is actually going to happen here? A should be added with 4. In my case, current A is 1, so it will add 1 plus 4. Right? And then in this case, you can write comments from anywhere, guys. It will not comment the entire line. It will start commenting from that particular position, from that particular character. So you can comment from anywhere. So this is nothing but B is equals to B minus 3. In this case, B value is simultaneously to 2, right? So it will be 2 minus 3 in this case, which will be minus 1, not 1, right? So simultaneously, C will have C multiplied with 4. Sorry for this mistake. Yeah. And this will run 4 multiplied with 4 itself, which will be 16, not 12. Right? 4 into 4. Let us see the output. So it's minus 5 minus 1, 12. So why is it 4? Okay, it's 3, not 4. My mistake. 3 into 4, 12. 5 minus 1, 12. This is how the assignment operator help you guys. Okay, so what is our next operator? Comparison operator. You can compare 2 different operands. Okay, coming to the syntax terminology again. LHS and RHS are called operands. In my case, you see A is equals to A plus B. In this case, A and B are operands, right? And plus is obviously arithmetic operator, and all of this is nothing but operation. Operands are A and B, plus is operator, entire operation is operation. Okay, so now that you know the terminology, I would like to compare 2 things. Let's say A is greater than B. And what are the A and B values? Let me give A is equals to 3 and then 4. So let me execute for A greater than B. In this case, 3 greater than 4. Yes or no? No. It means in our data types, it will not show you yes or no in English. It will show you true or false. So let's have this. It will give you false because 3 is not greater than 4. So does it matter if I give print function or not? See, in the Google Colab, if it is the very last line and you are giving an expression, print is not mandatory. But I will give you a good practice is to always use print if you are expecting an output. In this case, it is give me output because that is my last line, and Google Colab has that advantage feature. In your case, B is as a best practice of giving print all the time. If you don't give, it will not show you an output. In this case, see, now I have 3 lines. First is input, second is A less than B, and A greater than B. Let me run this. You will only see output for false. You will not see output for this. But if you want to see it, you need to keep this under print because it is not the last line of this cell. Now you will get an output for these 2 expressions. So as you guys already know, there are less than, greater than, double equals to, and not equals to. So less than, greater than, you already knew it. Let me just go to what this double equals to mean. So what is happening in this case is I'm comparing value 4 to the 4, right? Obviously it's 2. What if I'm comparing 4 with 5? It's gonna be false, right? This is my comparison operator equality. So if you go back and check, guys, if you want to have access to this, there is, I mean, you don't need to search anywhere else. They only have documentation from the official documentation. Go over Python docs. You can choose the concept that you are doing it here, tutorial. This is official one. You can choose the concept we are dealing with. Operators is what we are doing, right? So let us see where does the operators lie. Or if you feel that it is too clumsy and difficult for me, you have very nice visualization content from W3 schools, Python operators. If you see this, these are the operators available, and you can also see all the symbols under that specific operator available. So you can go for examples and click on try it and then execute it right away there also. For example, if I want to try that example, click there and run it. It will immediately show you the output right away. You can play with this kind of inputs here. Okay, so this is the output. I'm coming here to, yeah, assignment operator done and comparison. So I was speaking about this, which is it will just check operand 1 and operand 2 are equal or not. This means not equal to. This means greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, and less than equal to. So these are your comparison operators. So logical operators are and or not. So we can take one example on and or not. So if I just do, and again, I think this is something very familiar to you. Can you guys just recollect the truth table for and logic? If my operand 1 is A and operand B is second operand, and what is going to be A and B? Usually you write this A and B. In other languages you use symbol ampersand. So we will just use the truth table. Obviously when there are two inputs, it's 0-0 combination, and A and B is 0, right? So 0-0-0-1 combination is 0 again, because even if you have one false, right? 1-0 combination, it is still 0 because you had 1 0. Only when both are true, it's true. I think this is a simple logic truth table for and, you already know it. So whenever both are true, then only it's true, or else no. So considering this as a logic, if you take an example of saying 2 and 3. So in my case, 2 is one value and 3 is another value. And if you have a value, it means it's a true case. So in my case, it is having true in both of these situations. So what we will do is compare this 2 and 3 with true and true, and obviously answer is 1, right? So my shortcut for you when you are learning this truth table is when you are using and thing, find first false is going to be my shortcut for you. Okay, so when you run this particular line, in your case 2 was not false and 3 was not false, and this is exactly where it stops. It had cross-checked all the operands and then it came here. In this case, I only have 2 operands, right? So what if I have multiple things like this, 4 and 5 and 6, let's say like this. So it will keep on cross-checking it's true or false. If you have a value, it means it's true case, right? So true, true, true in this case, true in this case, true in this case, true in this case, true in this case. It never got false like its truth table, right? It means in the end it reached to 7 and it still did not find false. So you only have left with 7. So you can immediately say answer is 7. What if there is a false case among these operands? Let me put 0 here. 0 is again a false case. Okay, so let's run this. Immediately it showed 0, because even if there is one false case in it, immediately it will show you that false case value. In this example, I am using 0 as false case, there are other data types where it can be empty and false case. So those things we'll learn when when we just finish learning data types. All right. So yeah, this is how the AND gate works simultaneously with OF or OR gate. You must already be aware of it. A OR will give me, even if a single thing is true, it will be true, right? So in my case, if I take this example, what I will do in this case is, let me comment this right now. Instead of AND, I'll put OR. And see, so this is going to be find first true. If there is a true case, please go and stop there, right? So in my case, both are true, and it already found its true case. It doesn't even need to go to, do that second operand case, right? I mean, this is just one way of me telling you mind mapping of doing things faster way. It's just a shortcut and a faster way of doing this. If you remember find first true word, you'll immediately get this logic. Okay, so what if situation is like this? It has to be lowercase, guys, not a caps lock. So I'm giving two statements here, so it will have to give me two. Yeah, see here, doesn't matter how many operands you have. When you do that logical OR combination with any inputs, you already found your first true. So it will not take you, it will not give you output of any true cases that you have later on. So if you want a confirmation, you can just keep 2000, which is obviously a true case again. It will give you 2000 only because it's your very first true case. All right. So what if this is 0? Is this a true case? Find first true. This is 0. It is not my true case. So it will go on doing that for operand for 3. 3 in this case is a true case. When you run this, you get 3 because 0 was false, and OR gate will expect a true case. So it will give you immediately first available true case. That is how the logical OR gate works. Okay, find first true. And the other thing is, let's see it. Not operator, it's just like a negation. Okay, for example, we usually use that not with membership operators. Let's say not 1. I'm saying not 1. 1 is nothing but which case? True case. It means not true. Not true is negation of true is false. That's how we can do it. If you say not 0, it means it's true because 0 is false. You are saying not false. It means it's true. So that is how the not keyword works as a negation. Okay, so this is your Python logical operators. So we were done with comparison operators, arithmetic operators, assignment operators, and identity operators. Is very simple. It will have is and is not. So when you remember, when I did comparison operator in print, 2 double equals to 2, it was just checking whether two values are equal or not, right? So that is with comparison operator equality. This is not the same as your double equality. This is an identity operator is where it needs strict equality with respect to object level and data type and value. So in my case, what I'm saying is, let us check for 2 is 2. See, guys, whenever you are having this kind of issues or any kernel level issues or some network issues, if you've experienced these kind of things, you can go to your runtime, and if you go click on restart and run all, or you can just restart runtime, it will delete all your previous executions, not the code. It will not delete the code. It will delete the storage behind the cache, behind these executions. This is now like a fresh collab where you are executing for the very first time. If I had cache issues, it will be gone. Okay, whenever it's stuck or if it's hanging something, you can just go to runtime and go for restart runtime. Okay, because it's a cloud executive thing, you can just do that. Oh. Take Python operator. Python is so good that it is even letting you know, do you mean this, do you or this? So beautiful, error explanations are also happening in this, right? So let me do, in this case, 2.0 is true, and 2 is 2.0. And it is saying, see here, false. The reason why it is saying even with explanation, first one was true and the second one is false. Why is it happening so? You have to understand a little more complex way in this case. 2 is one object, 2.0 is another object. When I say object, it is just like, you can consider it as one value. And usually in OOPS, in a higher level of terminology, we speak any value as object. So in my case, these are two objects. When I compared, I was only comparing value of that operand. 2 is same as 2.0. 2.0 for us is nothing but 2. So both values are same and it is just giving you true. Yes, they are true because value basis they are true. In this case, when you're checking with identity operator, which is, it will not just compare the values, it will also compare the object that it belongs to. It means here my data type is 2, which is an integer, and the data type is float. So when I'm doing this comparison with identity operator, it is letting you know, hey buddy, the operands that you're giving me are not identical with respect to objects. Okay, if you're comparing value basis, go for this operator. If you're comparing not just value, even the object and the memory address it is storing and the data type, if you're that strictly comparing them, go for identity operators. Okay, I think these will make sense soon once we write few programs on Docker. All right, so that is with your identity operator. Membership operators is just going to cross check if something is existing inside or not. So in my case,
Sir, sorry for interrupting you, sir.
yes, Minju.
Sir, actually, we are running out of time.
Yes, I'm wrapping it up.
Okay, sir. Actually, we'll give 5 minutes for clarifying the doubts.
Sure. Yeah.
Actually, some topics are left to today's presentation.
Right.
Tomorrow
Right.
you can continue that, sir.
Sure.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Shall I keep this for doubt session
Sure,
for a
sir.
few minutes?
Sure, sir.
Yeah, this is your time, guys. As I said, obviously you cannot learn entire programming very perfectly within the limited time. What I'm just giving you is a crisp of everything that is happening around of basic concepts of Python, right? So you can give me feedback or any doubts. Feel free to share in the chat, or you can unmute, I guess, if they allow, or else we'll take